Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Sakura Haruno was banging on the door for the 5th time. She was annoyed. No, she was pissed. She was supposed to meet her teammate, Naruto Uzumaki, this morning for some training, but he never showed. It seemed the blonde was trying to pull a Kakashi and Sakura wasn't going to tolerate that one bit from the blonde. So she stormed her way to Naruto's apartment ready to drag the loudmouth blonde out no matter what state his dress was. She was that pissed. When she got there she began banging on the door, though she held herself back from using her chakra-enhanced strength and breaking down the door. She didn't want to cause that big of a ruckus. Naruto, open this door this instant, the pink-haired Kunoichi shouted. She kept banging on the door till she heard the locks go and the doorknob twist open. She was ready to berate her friend for his lateness when she found that it wasn't the knucklehead ninja who opened the door. No, it was a girl who was a bit taller than her. Her messy brown hair showed she had just gotten up from bed. She was only wearing a black shirt that went down to mid-thigh. The girl yawned and rubbed her eyes, getting the sleep out. Must you make such a ruckus? She asked tiredly. Sakura could only blink at this. Do you know what time it is? The brunette asked, yawning. Who are you, and what are doing here? Sakura asked with her brain now back in gear. Huh, it's me, Tenten, and why are you banging on Naruto's door so early? Tenten asked, blinking away the last bit of sleep from her eyes. Tenten, what the bleeding hell was Tenten doing at Naruto's? And why dressed like that? Naruto told me to meet him at the training grounds and he never showed up, so I decided to drag his butt there, Sakura said. Oh, sorry, that's my fault that he didn't show up. I kind of kept him up last night, Tenten said, blushing slightly. Kept him up? No way in hell she meant what I think she is meaning, Sakura thought as she took in the way Tenten was dressed. Who is it, Tenten? Soon Naruto appeared bare-chested, wearing only boxers that had foxes all over them. Sakura blushed upon seeing her teammate so bare. She didn't realize how muscular Naruto had gotten. He looked amazing. Just Sakura. You forgot that you were supposed to meet her this morning, Tenten said, walking back into the apartment and to the kitchen. Oh, right. Sorry about that, Sakura, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his messy bed hair. Yeah, so you and Tenten? Sakura asked. Yeah, Naruto said without hesitation. The two stood awkwardly for a moment. Listen, I am really sorry for missing our training thing. I promise to make it up to you, Naruto said. Sakura nodded and left. She had a lot on her mind. Naruto closed the door with a sigh and shook of his head. He entered the small kitchen he had and found Tenten sipping on a cup of tea. I guess she knows now, she said. Yeah, I guess she does, Naruto said. Hinata took a deep breath as she once again tried to gather her fleeing courage. She could do this, she could do this. That's what she kept telling herself over and over in her mind. She knew that Naruto liked to get up early and train. She knew this because she stalked, observed Naruto's daily routine when he wasn't on a mission. She spent a week just figuring what to say to Naruto. Now was the day she was going to put her plan into action. That's as if she could walk up the steps to Naruto's apartment. Now it was a well-known fact in the entire village that Hinata really liked Naruto and that Naruto was completely clueless to this fact. It was also an everyday occurrence to see the Hyuga princess to faint when Naruto was closer to her. She would become a ripe tomato stuttering mess when he was near. This was found a bit humorous to their friends, though also a bit exasperating too. With a very shaky hand Hinata knocked on the door. The problem was she did it too softly, so she had to rap the door many times just to be heard. The sound of shuffling feet was heard and Hinata readied herself. In her mind she had her whole spiel laid out. She'd offer to train with him, then at noon they'd go get something to eat, have a nice meal of ramen, then after that back to training, then at night more ramen and possible have Naruto walk her home. Yes, it was a good plan, it couldn't fail. The door opened and Hinata opened her mouth to speak only to be frozen in place. Her eyes widened at the sight of messy-haired brunette. The brunette was only wearing a black shirt with an orange swirl pattern on it. It only went mid-thigh. The girl yawned, and as she stretched, the shirt rode up, revealing a pair of skimpy panties. "What do you want?" she asked grumpily. Hinata squeaked out. The girl blinked away some more sleep, then realized who it was at the door. "Hinata, what are you doing here?" she asked. Tenten, is that you?" Hinata asked as her scattered brain was reformed. "Yeah. What brings you here so early in the morning, Hinata?" Tenten asked, rubbing the back of her head. I wanted to see if Naruto was available for training," Hinata said as her plan came back into focus. "Oh, funny, he never mentioned any training session with you when we were together last night," Tenten said to herself. "You and Naruto were together last night," Hinata squeaked out. "Yeah," Tenten said like it wasn't any big deal. Before Hinata could say something about that, Naruto appeared. He was only clad in boxers with pictures of foxes on them. He smiled and wrapped his arms around Tenten's waist and kissed her neck, totally unaware of Hinata. Tenten groaned as she tilted her head so Naruto could get more of her neck. She pressed her body hard against Naruto's, enjoying the contact fully. Hinata made another squeak, which got the two's attention. "Oh hey Hinata, what brings you by this morning?" Naruto said with a smile. Hinata's face was quite red just seeing Naruto's bare chest. Her mind was going to places that would make the gutter look like a posh hotel. It was amazing she hadn't passed out yet. "Hinata wanted to train with you today," Tenten said as she was gently stroking Naruto's hands that were around her waist. Okay, it will have to be later since I am kind of tired still," Naruto said. Tenten wore a smug look on her face. I won," she declared. Naruto turned to her and glared. "I doubt that. I seem to recall that you passed out more times than I did last night," he said in counter. "So, you have won the battle. I won the war," Tenten said triumphantly. Naruto snorted. "I haven't begun to fight," he said. "Round 2? Tenten asked with a quirked eyebrow. "Round 2? Naruto said firmly. Tsunade was annoyed, very annoyed. She had just come from the home of her apprentice to find she wasn't there. Now she was on her way to her teammate's place hoping he'd have answers to the whereabouts of her wayward apprentice. Her apprentice had missed an early morning training session that was scheduled. It took months just get some free time to do some training, and the girl had the nerve to stand her up. She was going give the pink-haired girl a piece of her mind when she got her hands on her. Once she got to the door, she banged hard against it. Thankfully she wasn't using her chakra-enhanced strength, or the door would have broken off the hinges. "Brat, open up now," she shouted as she banged on the door. Tsunade tapped her foot as she waited. It took a good half-hour till she heard the sound of shuffling feet was in the locks of the door was clicked and the doorknob turned. Tsunade was about to lay into the young blonde for making her wait when she got a shock. In front of her was her wayward apprentice. Her pink hair was a mess, she was using a bed sheet to cover herself up, and she looked sleepy. "Do you know what time it is?" Sakura asked grumpily. Tsunade's mouth was doing a good impression of a fish as she stared at Sakura. "Oh, Lady Tsunade, what brings you here?" Sakura asked, now a bit more awake. "I came to ask the Naruto where you were," the fifth Hokage said. "Oh, well, here I am," Sakura said, blushing nicely. "I can see that," Tsunade said dumbly. Sakura looked down, playing with a bit of the hem of the sheet. Not knowing what to say. "Who's at the door, Cherry Blossom?" That voice was Naruto, and soon he appeared, only wearing a pair of fox-imprinted boxers. He wrapped his arms around Sakura's waist and nestled his face into her neck. You smell great," he murmured. Sakura's blush increased at this, but she didn't seem to mind it at all either as her body moved on its own, pushing herself against Naruto's. Tsunade though was shocked. This couldn't be happening. She knew that Naruto had a thing for Sakura, but never thought Sakura would reciprocate those feelings, but here was the evidence staring her right in the face and her brain could not compute. Naruto, not now, Sakura admonished, though it was pretty weak as she tilted her head, letting Naruto's mouth more access to her neck. Naruto mumbled as he kissed Ed and nibbled on Sakura's neck. Tsunade could only stare at the sight. The boy she thought of family was necking her apprentice, and her apprentice was enjoying and was that purring she heard coming from Sakura. This was not a sight she really wanted or needed to see in the morning or any time for that matter. Naruto nuzzling Sakura's neck continued on as Naruto's hands rubbed and caressed Sakura's stomach, moving higher and higher ever so slowly. This caused Sakura to wiggle and let out small moans of satisfaction of what Naruto was doing to her. Naruto, Sakura said in a breathy tone. Come on, Sakura. We've got more time to make up for, Naruto said into Sakura's ear. Sakura couldn't argue as she was too wrapped up in Naruto's kisses and hands. Yes, so much time to make up, so much of it, so much, the pink-haired Kunoichi mumbled. Naruto dragged Sakura back into the apartment and kicked the door shut in Tsunade's face. Sakura Haruno was a Kunoichi on a mission. She had gotten up early and had gone over the plan she had made last night over in her head. Today she was going to make Naruto Uzumaki hers. She had been denying her feelings for the rambunctious blonde for a while now, thinking she still had feelings for one Sasuke Uchiha. But those feelings have dwindled into nothing since Naruto's return from his 3-year training mission he had been on. Now every day since then she had denied herself what was right in front of her. But not anymore. No, she was ready to face the truth, her reality. So she was going to make her way to Naruto's home this morning to confess her feelings. She knew he'd accepted them since he'd been smitten with her ever since their academy days. The plan was foolproof. After a couple minutes of self-talk to get herself fired up, she made her way through the village to Naruto's apartment. She knocked on the door softly only to get no answer. She knocked a bit harder her next round, but still no response. Now she was getting a bit irked, but held it at bay. She knocked again harder, but still no answer. It was several minutes of this and Sakura got fed up and started banging on the door. Luckily the door was reinforced so it wouldn't go down easily. That and Sakura hadn't infused chakra into her fists yet either. Naruto opened this door this instant. Sakura shouted. She heard the sound of stomping feet and she ceased her pounding and waited patiently for the door to open. She was ready to lay into her soon-to-be boyfriend for leaving her outside to wait only for the words to leave her. When the door opened there stood a blonde, but it wasn't Naruto. This blonde was slightly taller than her and was female. She had a bed sheet wrapped around her body with it tucked around her s. She looked very angry and annoyed at being here at the door. Her arms were folded across her chest, just enhancing her cleavage. Do you have any idea what time it is? The female blonde growled. Sakura blinked. She was dumbfounded. Who the hell was this girl and why was she in Naruto's apartment wearing only a sheet? Who are you and why are you in Naruto's apartment dressed like that? The pink-haired ninja asked with anger laced in her voice. Look, Pinky, you're the one banging on the door in the morning, so I should be asking the questions here, the blonde girl said angrily. Sakura was about to fire back a retort when a new voice entered. Who's at the door, Tamari? Sakura knew that voice. It was Naruto's. This girl here in front of her was Tamari. What the heck was she doing on here? Wasn't Tamari with Shikamaru? Why was she here and not with Shikamaru? Soon Naruto appeared looking disheveled and was running a hand through his bedhead hair as the other hand was rubbing his eyes. He was only wearing his boxers, which had foxes on them. He got to the doorway and blinked. Sakura, what are you doing here? He asked confused. Sakura stuttered as she stared at Naruto's bare-muscled chest. Just spit it out, Pinky. We were in the middle of something when you interrupted, Tamari said, rolling her eyes. This jarred Sakura and her mind began firing. She took in their wardrobe in and her eyes widened. No way. This had be some kind of joke, right? There's no way Naruto and Tamari were in the middle of doing that. Look, Sakura, could you come back later? Temari and I have some unfinished business to take care of. Naruto asked, rubbing the back of his head. Sakura just sputtered in response as her mind tried to comprehend what was going on. Come on, Naruto. The bed is calling and I am going to win this challenge, Temari said. In your dreams, Naruto snorted. Temari sashayed her way back into the apartment and looked over her bare shoulder and gave Naruto a lustful look. You can the talk, but can you walk the walk? She said tauntingly. Naruto felt himself stir and grinned his foxy grin. I think you know I can walk the walk last night. I walked a lot last night, he said with a bit of smugness in his voice. Temari blushed brightly as she remembered last night vividly. But she wasn't one to give up. She then did her best to push her blush down and get a determined look on her face. Round 2 then, I was just getting warmed up before, she said stubbornly. Sure, whatever, Naruto said, rolling his eyes. Temari made her way back to Naruto's bedroom and Naruto turned to Sakura, who was still standing there totally in shock at the ally flirtatious banter she had just witnessed. I'll see you later today, Sakura. Bye, Naruto said, then slammed the door in Sakura's face. Sakura was very angry. Her teammate was late. Hell, he was later than their porn-reading Junin. What made matters worse was that when said Junin arrived, he cancelled their meeting due to a mission he was needed for. So coupled with having to wait so long for both her teammate and her sensei, then add into the fact that she was on her period, and that meant she wasn't one happy camper one bit. She was downright apocalyptic. So she stormed to her teammate's apartment to give him a piece of her mind, then drag him to the training ground where she could teach him some very good reasons not to be late ever again. Naruto, you idiot, you wake up now, or so help me. The pink-haired Kunoichi shouted as she pounded on Naruto's reinforced door. There was no answer, which pissed Sakura off even more as she kept banging on the door. Soon the door flew open and Sakura was about lay into her teammate both verbally and physically when a voice stopped her. Do you have any idea what time it is, forehead? Sakura blinked. Ino, what are you doing here? She asked, all anger gone now replaced with utter confusion. Before her was Ino Yamanaka, heiress of the Yamanaka clan. Her long blonde hair was a complete mess and she was wearing a mesh undershirt, making you able to see her purple bra underneath it. She also had on matching purple panties. Her arms were folded across her chest and she looked quite annoyed. So what the heck are you doing here, forehead? Ino asked with much annoyance laced in her voice. Sakura stuttered out as her mind tried to wrap around a reason why Ino was at Naruto's and dressed like that. Who's at the door, Ino? Naruto appeared, only wearing his boxers that had foxes and bowls of ramen on them. Sakura blushed at the sight of how bare her teammate was. She had never seen him with such little clothing before. He moved to be in back of Ino and wrapped his arms around her waist. Ino leaned back against Naruto's chest and sighed as she made contact. The two looked quite comfortable in this position. It's just forehead, Ino said. Naruto nodded, then after kissing the top of Ino's head he turned to Sakura. What's up, Sakura? He asked happily. Sakura let out an "urk," but said nothing else. Her mind was overloading at the sight before her. Naruto and Ino together. This was something that was totally unbelievable. It just wasn't possible at all. It had to be a joke, an illusion of some kind. A genjutsu. Yeah, it had to be a very powerful genjutsu of some kind. There was no way Naruto and Ino would be together like that, right? Look, forehead, are you going to tell us what you're doing here, or are you going to stand there all day? Naruto and I have some stuff we'd like to get done, Ino said with annoyance, though a blush graced her face as she said the word stuff. Naruto looked down at Ino. You're calling what we did last night stuff? I think it was more than just stuff, Ino. Given how many times we did that stuff, Naruto said with a grin at the end. Ino's blush increased with this, but then turned around in Naruto's grasp and wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. She pressed her body up against Naruto's so not even a piece of paper could get in between them. I don't think you were complaining last night, she said with a smirk and glint in her eye. No, far from it, if you remember correctly, Naruto said with his own foxy smirk. Ino's smirk increased as she pushed herself closer into Naruto and began moving in a very suggestive way. Naruto groaned and tightened his grip on Ino as he reciprocated. You're insatiable, he said with a groan. Only for you. Now take me to bed, Ino said, panting slightly. Naruto picked Ino up bridal style and spun around, kicking the door shut as he left. It was just after 11 o'clock in the morning and everything was peaceful except for the constant beating of a pink-haired Kunoichi was doing on the front door of an apartment. Sakura was pissed. She had a rare day off from the hospital and Naruto, her teammate and friend, had asked if she was up for some training at their old training grounds. She jumped at the chance since she hadn't seen the hyperactive blonde in weeks. So she showed up a bit early for their planned meeting. He never showed. She waited till she got ticked. She was not going to let the blonde do a Kakashi on her. So she stormed her way to his apartment ready to give him a piece of her mind by way of a chakra-enhanced fist to the head. She kept banging on the door since she didn't want to waste her chakra on breaking the door down. No, she wanted to save her energy for the main event, which would be a chakra-infused fist to her friend's head. She heard some shuffling footsteps and she stopped her pounding and began tapping her foot in waiting. The clicking of the locks and the sound of the doorknob turning got Sakura in a stance good for punching. When the door opened, it wasn't the blonde knucklehead ninja. No, it was a girl with pupil-less eyes. She had dark purple sort of bluish hair, which was messy due to just getting out of bed. She was wearing a black shirt that only went down mid-thigh. Oh Sakura, what are you doing here? The pupil-less girl asked with her voice going from grumpy to a more timid voice. Sakura could just blink at the sight of the girl. Why are you being so loud so early? The girl asked, yawning. Who are you? Sakura asked in shock. The girl blinked out the last of the sleep from her eyes. It's me, Hinata Hyuga, Hinata said. Hinata? What the heck was Hinata doing at Naruto's? Sakura thought. What are you doing here, Sakura? Hinata asked, reiterating her first question. Oh, well, Naruto wanted to do some training with me today, Sakura said. Oh, I am so sorry. I kind of made Naruto forget about that, Hinata said shyly as her cheeks grew quite red. What do you mean? Sakura said, but was stopped when Naruto appeared. Naruto was only clad in boxers that had foxes on them. His chest was bare, showing his muscular frame. Sakura blushed and turned away since she was embarrassed. She had never seen Naruto so exposed before. He stood right behind Hinata and wrapped his arms around Hinata's waist. Hinata sighed as she rested her back against Naruto's chest. Hey Sakura, Naruto greeted. Wait a minute, Hinata is only wearing a shirt, Naruto, his boxers. That can only mean, oh no, 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 no. This can't be happening. I can't believe it, Sakura thought frantically. It seems you were supposed to meet Sakura for training today, Hinata said in her normal soft voice. Oh, yeah, I guess I forgot, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head and giving a sheepish smile. That's alright, we can just meet a bit later. I gotta go, see ya later Naruto, Hinata, Sakura said in a rushed tone, then ran without looking back. Naruto looked at where Sakura once was, then looked down at Hinata, who was still leaning against him. I guess she knows now, he said. Hinata was ready. She was confident enough to do this. Well, that's what she keeps telling herself, that is. So with almost an hour of a self-pep talk and arguing with herself, she made her way to a certain blonde's apartment. What she didn't know was she wouldn't be the only one heading there. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Sakura was finally ready. She had thought long and hard about it and decided it was meant to be. Naruto was going to be her boyfriend. After years and years of the blonde pestering her for a date, she'd give him one and then go from there. So she left feeling very confident. Neither Hinata or Sakura knew they were headed to the same destination as they took different routes. They collided with one another outside Naruto's door. Hinata, what are you doing here? Sakura asked surprised. I could ask you the same, Sakura. I know you have a day off from the hospital and you usually sleep in on those days, Hinata said just as surprised as Sakura. I, wanted to see if Naruto wanted to do some training with me today. It has been a long time since we've done that, Sakura said, making a lie up on the spot. Oh, I see, Hinata said. What are you doing here? Sakura asked. Oh, well, I was, Hinata said. Before either could say another thing, the door opened and it revealed a certain blonde. He was dressed in just his boxers, which had battle fans and kunai all over them. His hair was still a mess from sleeping. Hey, you two, what are you doing here? He asked with a yawn. Hinata eeked, as a rosy hue covered her cheeks. Sakura was just as red as she saw how much Naruto had grown. Damn, he looked fine. He had a nice bod thanks to the years of strenuous training he put himself through. But before either girl could speak, another voice was heard. Naruto baby, who's at the door? It's too early. Just Sakura and Hinata, Naruto called back. Two figures soon appeared, both stopping at Naruto's sides. One was a long-haired brunette and the other was a dirty blonde. What got both Sakura's and Hinata's attention was the attire of the other two girls. They both were wearing shirts that Naruto had probably thrown on the floor. The shirts just ended several inches above their panties, which meant it showed off their toned stomachs along with their fit and shapely legs. The two girls were stunning even with their messy just out of bed hair. Who are you two and why are you with Naruto? Sakura demanded. Sakura, it's me, Tenten, the brunette said. Tenten? This was Tenten, it couldn't be. Hinata thought Tenten had a thing for her cousin Neji. Why was she with Naruto and dressed like that? It didn't make any sense to the Hyuga. As for Sakura, she was in the state of mind as Hinata. She thought the weapons-loving girl loved the stoic Hyuga prodigy. So why Tenten with Naruto dressed like that? Okay, and what about you? Sakura asked, turning to the dirty blonde. It's me, Temari. Geez, you'd think coming here all the time as ambassador for Suna you'd remember me, the dirty blonde said, rolling her eyes. This was another shock since both Sakura and Hinata thought the Suna Kunoichi was in a relationship with a certain lazy chunin. But if that was true, then why was she with Naruto? Scene break. Somewhere a lazy chunin sneezed. Troublesome, he said as he went back to cloud watching. Scene break. WHWH, what's going on here? Hinata asked. Sakura's eyes widened, as a certain realization hit her. It was too far-fetched to believe, but still it hit her and it stayed. It can't be. No, that's not possible. It's just not possible, the pink-haired Kunoichi muttered. Temari smirked. What can't be possible? The Suna Kunoichi asked with a smirk. Yeah, what can't be possible? Tenten asked with a smirk of her own. Sakura was still trying to wrap her head around what she had just realized while it had just dawned on Hinata. The Hyuga looked at Tenten, then at Temari, then back at Tenten, then Temari. This just couldn't be possible. Her pupil-less eyes wide in disbelief. What are you two doing here? Naruto asked. This jarred both Hinata and Sakura from their thoughts of disbelief. Oh, I wanted to see if you wanted to train with me since we haven't in a long time, Sakura said with her brain still trying to come to terms with what she had just figured out. I, want to train with you also, Hinata said since she had no lie of her own she just borrowed Sakura's. Sorry girls, Naruto is going to be a bit busy training with us for some time, Temari said with a devilish smile. Tenten mirrored that smile while Hinata's blush went to epic proportions and Sakura was doing a fish out of water imitation. Come Naruto, we've taken a long enough break. Back to the trenches, Tenten said. Temari just sauntered off back to the bedroom swaying her hips enticingly. Tenten followed suit doing her own hip sway. Naruto didn't take his eyes off both girls and their little walk. He whipped his head around real quick to the two girls at the door. Sorry, gotta go by, he said quickly, then slammed the door closed. Kurenai Yuhi sighed as she looked everywhere for her wayward friend. She had last seen Anko Mitarashi, Konoha's resident snake mistress, last night when the two went out drink that night. Well, Anko drank and Kurenai was there to watch and make sure her best friend didn't do anything too dangerous or reckless. But this was Anko we're talking about here, so there was nothing really out of bounds for her. Anyway, back to the Genjutsu mistress search. She had looked high and low for her friend, checking all of Anko's usual hangouts, but no sign of her at all. Anko, you better be alright or so help me, Kurenai muttered to herself. She had checked the mission's office on the off chance that Anko was on a mission and didn't let her know. But according to them and the chart of available shinobi the office had, it showed Anko should still be in the village. So this led to Kurenai to look all over once again. She was getting very frustrated when she heard something. Hey, you heard? That snake whore was last seen with the little demon, a civilian said. What? You've got to making that up, the second civilian said. I am not, I heard it from a reliable source, the first civilian said. Kurenai immediately rushed off, not wanting or needing to hear any more. She now knew where to find Anko. She finally got to Naruto's building and made her way to the Sunny Blonde's apartment. She knew this since she saw Hinata follow Naruto home one day. She knocked loudly on the door. There was no answer and Kurenai frowned. It was past noon. He should be up. Besides, she knew he was in the village since his name wasn't on the out for a mission board and she would have seen him on her search for Anko before. You can't miss him with all the orange he loved to wear. She knocked on the door, harder this time. She kept doing this and was about to kick the door down when it opened. The Genjutsu mistress was about to ask the Sunny Blonde if he had seen Anko, but her mouth was left hanging open when right in front of her was Anko. Anko let out a big yawn. Oh come on, it's too early for a wake-up call. Huh, Kurenai, what are you doing here? She asked with confusion laced in her voice. Kurenai was speechless with what was before her. Here was Anko in the doorway of Naruto's apartment. She just had her trench coat on that barely covered her body. She was also wearing what appeared to be a pair of Naruto's boxers, if the pictures of ramen bowls with wings were any indication. Kurenai, why are you here? Anko asked again, confused as to why her best friend was here. Came. I was worried about you, Kurenai said. Oh, I am fine. In fact, better than fine, Anko said with a bright, I just had the best of my life, smile on her face. Before Kurenai could respond, a bare-chested Naruto came to the door. He wrapped his arms around Anko's waist, stroking her taut belly. Anko moaned as she leaned into Naruto's embrace, sensually rubbing a certain area on Naruto's body with her butt. This made Naruto groan and nip at Anko's ear, causing her to purr a bit. These actions had Kurenai staring at them, unable to look away at the sight before her. Come back to bed, my serpent nymph, Naruto whispered into Anko's ear. Anko groaned and pushed her rear into Naruto's groin harder than before. Kurenai, who should be used to this, was completely stunned by this all. Sorry Kurenai, got to go. Important business and all that jazz, Anko said, then slammed the door shut. Kurenai stood there still stunned as her brain tried to reboot and then compute what she had just seen. It took several tries, then she shook her head. She could hear the sounds of both Naruto and Anko coming from the apartment. I'm going to get a drink and forget all about this. This never happened, she said, then rushed to the nearest bar. Jiraiya was looking all over for Tsunade. She was supposed to be in her office, but wasn't there at all. Normally Shizune would be out looking too, but she was sick and was forced on bed rest till she got better. So it was left to Jiraiya to do the searching. The Anbu was also looking, but they've come up empty-handed in finding their Hokage. They needed to find Tsunade quickly before the other villages hear about this and think they can attack when Konoha is leaderless. Where can she be? I've checked every bar in Konoha. The Toad Sage muttered under his breath as he leapt across rooftops. He has checked every bar there was, even in the red light district, just to be sure. You never know. But he didn't see a blonde hair or big boob anywhere. This was beginning to worry him since Tsunade could be hurt badly and maybe had no way of contacting them. Sure, she's the best medic in the world, but that didn't mean a thing when you're injured severely and possibly unconscious as well. All these scenarios ran through his head. These kinds of things haven't been seen in the hermit's mind since the war. He shivered at all these horrid images and possible scenes. He was worried about his old teammate. Then a spark of an idea hit him. Naruto. He should go and tell him what's going on since the lad knows Konoha pretty well and could help him on the search. It had been a long time since he saw his apprentice anyway and should probably say hi. Though this was kind of a bad time to do just that. But he veered off his course and headed to Naruto's apartment. He got there and frowned. He really needed to find a new place for his godson. The apartment complex was run down and about 2 shakes from being called condemned. But he shook those thoughts away. He'd do something about that later. He knocked on the door hoping the brat was home. "What do you want? Do you know what time it is?" Naruto asked as he opened the door. Jiraiya saw his apprentice looked like he just got out of bed. His hair was an awful mess and he was only wearing a pair of boxers Jiraiya hazarded to guess that the blonde just threw on. Naruto's bare torso was to all who could see and it would have caused many women and girls drooling if they saw it. "Huh, pervy sage, what are you doing here? Isn't a bath house open or something?" Naruto asked. "Why do you still call me that name?" Jiraiya asked with a vein bulging from his forehead. Naruto ignored his sensei. He was used to this reaction. Jiraiya was about to rant some more then a whiff of something caught his nose. He knew this scent well after all of his years of travel. His nose was quite sensitive to certain smells now and this one made his nose twitch almost violently. It sent signals to his brain and it didn't take his brain too long to process them. His eyes widened then he got a perverted look on his face combined with a look of great happiness too. It was a scary look to say the least. "You did it, brat. You've become a man. I am so proud of you." "So who did you do? Was it that pink-hair girl you always go on about?" "Wait. Don't tell me, it was that shy Hyuga. She's always had a thing for you and I bet she's a beast in the sack. The quiet and shy ones are always like that. Believe me, I know," Jiraiya said giggling pervertedly as a bit of blood oozed from his nose. Naruto opened his mouth, but Jiraiya cut him off before a syllable could be uttered. "Wait, it was that weapons girl wasn't it? She's probably very kinky with all those weapons hidden on her person. I bet she can play hide the kunai very well." "Oh no, it was that Yamanaka girl. She has a nice figure I guess and you have spent a lot time at her family shop." "No, it was that Suna girl that is the ambassador for Suna. She wanted to thank you for saving her brother." "Yeah, that's it," Jiraiya said as he looked like a fortune teller with his hand waving about as he tried to guess who Naruto had slept with. All that was missing was the goofy looking outfit and crystal ball. What is that old pervert going on about now? This caused Jiraiya to freeze in position with his legs in a stance and his arms waving about. Because appearing at the door with Naruto was the last person he would expect to see there. It was Tsunade. She looked like a mess like Naruto. Her hair that was usually in a ponytail was askew. She was wearing just her robe, which didn't cover much to tell you the truth and it would be one movement and it would slip revealing all even with the robe tied in a quick fashion. The robe went down to cover just high thigh, which meant she was at most kind of decent. "Well Jiraiya, what are you doing here?" Tsunade asked in a tone. Now if Jiraiya's brain was working, that's if it was ever working. He'd have realized the tone Tsunade was using meant she was pissed and very close in sending Jiraiya flying with one of her fists. But Jiraiya's brain wasn't functioning. It seemed to halt and took moments to reboot, which sounded like an old computer being turned on. He immediately dropped to his knees bowing to Naruto. "Oh great wise one, I am here to learn your ways. Please teach me," he groveled as tears streamed down his eyes. Naruto and Tsunade looked at the pervert with confused looks. Just what was going through the hermit's mind to make him act like this? Pervy sage, have you been huffing from some secret stash I don't know about?" Naruto asked. "No, oh wise one. I only wish to know how you were able to bed Tsunade." I wish to learn so I can go out and spread your holy message to the masses, Jiraiya said, still on his knees and tears still coming down. Naruto looked at Tsunade for help. She knew him longer. Tsunade sighed and rubbed her temples. Even out of the office she was getting a headache. So Naruto, my boy, how was she? Was she a fiery lover, a gentle one, or maybe both? Jiraiya asked. He was off his knees now and a notebook in hand ready to write. His perverted gleam in his eyes was going overboard. How did she feel? Were they as soft and pillowy as they look? Was it amazing? How many times did you do it? Was she the dominant one or submissive? Was there any toys involved? Any role-playing going on? How does it feel to be to the envy of every man? Jiraiya asked, still bombarding Naruto with questions. Tsunade clenched her fist and with a chakra-enhanced uppercut to Jiraiya's chin she sent the perverted hermit flying through the air. Ah! He screamed as he soared through the air. Well, that takes care of that. Let's get back to that. Physical, you started with me last night. I think you missed some areas, Naruto said with a lustful glint in his eye. Yes, I think I did. And as a good medic they can leave no stone unturned. They must make sure their patient is healthy and in tip-top condition, Tsunade said in a husky tone as she licked her lips. Naruto wrapped an arm around Tsunade's waist, spinning them around so they were heading to his bedroom. His hand undoing the knot on the robe, letting it fall away as he back-kicked the door shut. No one saw Tsunade for the rest of the day, and Jiraiya was found early the next morning in a huge crater unconscious with a big perverted grin on his face, mumbling, "I'm so proud," over and over. Sakura walked up the stairs to see how Naruto was doing. He was badly injured during the fight on the bridge. It was strange as how their enemies, Zabuza and Haku, became their allies when they found out they were being double-crossed by Gato. After the fight, Naruto was placed in his own room to recover from his injuries. Haku decided to help treat Naruto since she was the only one with any medical experience. "Naruto, are you awake?" Sakura asked as she knocked on the door. The door opened and instead of Naruto was Haku, but something was different about her. For one, her hair was a total mess, her kimono looked like she haphazardly threw it on, and she had an odd gleam in her eye. Not to mention her flushed cheeks and mild labor breathing. "Oh, it's you, Sakura. How are you this morning?" Haku asked, trying to act normal. "I am fine. Is Naruto alright?" Sakura asked. "He's fine, in fact better than fine. I believe he's close to a full recovery," Haku said with a hint of red in her cheeks. "Good. Kakashi-sensei wants him to guard Tazuna when he's up," Sakura said. "Oh, well, Haku muttered. Haku then felt a pair of arms wrap around her waist as she felt a bare chest crash against her back. She didn't resist at all and sighed as she nestled in. Her eyes closed for a moment of bliss. "What's taking so long, my ice princess? You still need to give me a thorough examination?" Naruto asked, whispering into Haku's ear, then began nibbling it. Haku did her best to suppress a groan, but it still escaped. Sakura just stood there shocked at what she was seeing. This couldn't be happening. The idiot Naruto and Haku. That just wasn't possible. Naruto looked up from his teasing of Haku. "Oh Sakura, what are you doing here?" he asked casually. Sakura just blinked as her mind still tried to compute what she was seeing. Bare-chested Naruto, Haku's state of dress, it was adding up, but not to where she was liking, and her young mind was crashing. "Whatever, come Haku. You can give me my exam, then I'll give you one," Naruto said as he rubbed her tummy sensually as he slowly was undoing the strap on her kimono. Haku didn't hold back a groan this time, and she turned to Naruto and kissed him hard. The two made out for a bit, then Haku turned back to Sakura, who was still dazed. "Sakura, let your sensei know that Naruto is still under observation and won't be able to return to duty for a while," she said. Naruto picked Haku up bridal style, making sure to grope her butt, making Haku blush and giggle. Naruto kicked the door shut and soon the sounds of soft moaning was heard. Sakura stood there, her brain totally shut down. She then fell down unconscious, not to be found till Sasuke found her and dragged her downstairs. Kiba wasn't in a great mood. For starters, he awoke late, then he had to make his own breakfast because his mom wasn't there. Then he was late for his meeting with Kuronai-sensei and she scolded him for being late. Next, Kuronai put him through torture, or in her case training, as a punishment for being late. Kuronai seemed to be a foul mood and Kiba wasn't sure why. He asked Shino during a break and all his usually quiet friend said was it's her time of the month, which confused the young Inuzuka, though Hinata blushed madly. After that, Kiba went back home to train, but found he couldn't find his mom or sister at all. They were nowhere on the compound and Kiba looked everywhere for them both. So Kiba was very unhappy since he wanted his mom to teach him some more of their clan's techniques. But like stated before, she was nowhere in sight. So Kiba decided to go and find his mom and sister. He looked everywhere sniffing for their scent, and though it took a long time since it was quite faint, he ended up at a certain blonde's door. Kiba wasn't sure why his mom and sister were at Naruto's, but it didn't matter to him. He started banging on the door. "Hey idiot, wake up!" the young Inuzuka yelled. Akamaru whimpered as he sensed the upcoming trouble. He left his owner quickly, not wanting to face what was to come. Kiba didn't even realize Akamaru had left him as he kept banging away at the door. The door was yanked open and Kiba was about to lay into Naruto, but found his mom instead. Sume was quite angry at being woken up when it was her day off. She glared at her son and bared her teeth. "Mom," Kiba asked dumbly. "What do you want, pup? I was in the middle of something very important." Sume asked in a slight growl. Kiba's feeble mind clicked as he saw what his mom was wearing, which was an oversized t-shirt with a swirl on the front. The shirt just went to her mid-thigh. Her hair was a total mess. She looked quite annoyed, like she was being interrupted from something quite enjoyable. "What's going on here?" Kiba asked, shouted. "Why in the hell are you so loud, little brother?" Hana asked as she appeared at the door. Kiba's jaw dropped as he saw that his sister was dressed in a very familiar trench coat that had red flames licking the bottom, and if you saw the back you'd see a giant fox imprinted on it. The only other thing she was wearing was a pair of thong-style panties. Her hair was in the same disarray as her mom's and she walked a bit bow-legged. Kiba knew whose jacket it was. This stunned and enraged the young Inuzuka, but he wasn't sure which one he felt more. They were warring within him, and on his face it looked like he was spasming out since his face kept changing and mixing expressions. It was like he had several facial tics all going at once. "Why are you here, Kiba? Mom and I are enjoying our day off." Hana asked with annoyance as she made sure the trench coat covered up herself enough so not to flash anyone on the street. Kiba let out a croak as his brain did its best to connect the dots, but even that was slow since Kiba isn't known for his brains. Though a part of him knew what was going on, his brain had yet to get there. Before either Inuzuka woman could ask Kiba again, Naruto appeared, just wearing a pair of boxers' chest. His hair was a complete mess. He came up behind the two women and wrapped an arm around both Sume and Hana's waists. He pulled them tightly to his body like he was reaffirming his claim. "Come on back to bed, you two. We've still got plenty of time to mate," he said in a lustful growl. Both Inuzuka women shivered at the tone, already feeling heat rise from their loins. Hana bent down and kissed Naruto, tongue and all. "In a moment, my alpha. We need to know why my dolt of a brother is here," she said. "Huh, Kiba, oh hey," Naruto said, not moving his hands from Sume or Hana. Kiba's eye twitched. "Kiba, if you're going to stand there like an idiot, then we'll be going. We have more important business to attend to," Sume said. Naruto smirked as he moved his hand under Sume's shirt and rubbed her tummy and then slowly moved up. Sume moaned as she leaned down and kissed Naruto heatedly. "You heard her, Kiba. We got some important business to get to." "So see ya," Naruto said as he dragged Sume and Hana back into his apartment, then slammed the door on Kiba's face. Kiba stood there with his expression a mixture of rage and of being stunned. It looked like he was constipated, really. "Going to Naruto," he said before his brain overload and he passed out. Shikamaru was annoyed. He was spending a nice day watching the clouds when he remembered that he was supposed to meet up with Naruto. Well, he got to the meeting spot, but no Naruto. He waited for a long while then got fed up. This made the lazy Nara very grumpy and now here he was leaping across rooftops to Naruto's apartment to give the blonde a piece of his mind. The two have been meeting and doing a bit of training. Shikamaru after the failed Sasuke retrieval mission had taken his duties as Chunin much more seriously. He even started to train more than what he usually did. Naruto was a great sparring partner since the blonde would keep egging the Nara on to do better and it was a great mental challenge too. The smartest Chunin facing off against Konoha's most unpredictable ninja. Shikamaru finally made it to the door of Naruto's apartment. He banged on the door. Naruto, Naruto, get up you lazy sack of bones, he called. Now this was shocking to hear a Nara call anyone else lazy, but Shikamaru was in a mood as stated before. He kept knocking till the door was wrenched open. Shikamaru stood there in absolute shock. Before him was the redhead that almosted him during the Sasuke retrieval mission. What the do you want, shitstain? The redhead asked in a growl. What are you doing here? Shikamaru asked blankly. I live here you dumb shit, Tayuya said with anger and annoyance. Shikamaru blinked then remembered. As they were gathering up the rest of the retrieval team they found Tayuya wasn't dead from the trees crushing her, but was on death's doorstep. Naruto himself had carried her all the way back to Konoha. He had awoken while Kakashi was carrying him. He argued that Tayuya should be saved since she could provide very important intel on Orochimaru and the snake's plans as well as the numbers the snake had under his control. So it was with great grumbling that they took the last surviving member of the Sound Four back to Konoha to get healed by Tsunade. After recovering from her injuries, Tayuya was put under watch. Naruto was chosen since it was him who brought her back, so she was his responsibility. But this wasn't what made Shikamaru struck dumb really. No, it was the state of dress Tayuya had shown up at the door in. Meaning she wasn't wearing much at all in the first place. A black shirt that seemed to be a bit small for her. It covered her chest, but you could see all of her taut tummy. A pair of flying ramen bowl boxers completed the outfit. Her long dark red hair in a total mess. Shikamaru blinked as his mind raced to a conclusion that was sound, but each one ended up right to where he didn't want his mind to go. Thus causing a bit of an overload for the Nara. Who's at the door, my foul-mouthed angel? Naruto's voice called. It's just that lazy motherer, Tayuya responded. Out came Naruto bare-chested only wearing a pair of boxers. He wrapped his arms around Tayuya's waist petting her bare stomach making the former member of the Sound Four purr. Hey Shika, what are you doing here? Naruto asked as he kept up his ministration on Tayuya's stomach. Shikamaru's eyes flicked from Naruto to Tayuya to Naruto's hands on Tayuya's stomach. His mind was definitely overloading now. Came by, supposed to, meet me, he mumbled out as metaphorical smoke erupted from his ears. Oh right, sorry about that. Tayuya and I got caught. Getting to know one another better, Naruto said with a foxy grin. Shikamaru just nodded as his mind was now going blank. Yeah, that's okay. We'll just reschedule or something. Listen, I got to go. I think I hear my mom calling me, it sounds important. Gotta go, he said then rushed off as fast as he could. Huh, that's odd. Shikamaru would never willing go to see his mom since he says she's too troublesome, Naruto said with a furrowed brow. Who gives a flying? Let's get back to knowing one another. I think we've still got a lot of ground to cover, Tayuya said as she spun around and wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and kissed him. As you wish, my angel, Naruto said then scooped Tayuya up and carried her to his bedroom making sure to kick the door shut. The sounds of giggling, groaning, and moaning and several cuss words were heard throughout the apartment. Sakura hopped from rooftop to Naruto's place. She hadn't seen him since he returned from a mission. That was a few days ago. So here she was making her way to her blonde teammate's place to see how he was doing. She got there and knocked on the door. There was no answer. This irked the pink-haired girl, but she kept her temper. She knocked again, but again no answer. This caused Sakura to release a bit of her anger. She began knocking, which then turned to banging on the door, loudly. Thankfully Naruto's door was reinforced so it would take a lot to knock it down. Plus the fact that Sakura hadn't gone into using chakra-enhanced knocks yet probably helped too. Naruto, you lazy, wake up. The pink-haired Kunoichi shouted. The door is wrenched open and Sakura was about to lay into her teammate for making her wait for so long, but her ready-to-use tirade dissipated quickly when before her wasn't her blonde teammate. No, the person standing in front of her was still blonde, but the person was a she. She was wearing just a bed sheet that was wrapped around her body tucked in just to show a bit of her top cleavage, which looked quite impressive. The blonde female crossed her arms as she glared at Sakura, which made her S look bigger. She also looked older than her, not too much older, but still older. Her blonde hair was long and quite disheveled. Not to mention the blonde's eyes were a dark violet color and had a cat-like appearance to them. Also, she was maybe a couple inches taller than Sakura. Can I help you? She asked with great annoyance in her voice. Who? Sakura stumbled. Oh great, are all Konoha Kunoichi as brain dead as you? The blonde asked, rolling her eyes. This enraged Sakura. I am not brain dead. I am the apprentice of Lady Tsunade, she said with pride. She must have handed it out as charity, the blonde snorted. Sakura growled as she balled up a fist ready to knock whoever this girl was. But she was stopped when someone appeared. It was Naruto. He was wearing only his boxers, meaning his chest was. Sakura blushed at the sight of her teammate's appearance. Naruto's hair was just as messy as the blonde girl's hair. He wrapped his arms around the blonde girl's waist and nuzzled her neck, making the blonde girl's head to crane to the side to give Naruto more access. This made the blonde girl to purr as Naruto used his mouth to lavish attention on her neck with her eyes closed, enjoying it all. Sakura stood there stunned again, wondering who this girl was and how'd Naruto know her. Naruto, who is she? She asked. This is Yugito. I found her badly injured when I was returning from my mission. I brought her here to get better, Naruto said, looking up at Sakura to answer her, then went back to his ministrations. Why didn't you take her to the hospital? Sakura asked. She's from another village. Thought it was better to keep her secret and get her healed and get her out of here without any trouble, Naruto said as his hands began roaming Yugito's bed-sheet-clothed body, making Yugito moan. Yugito moved her head and her lips met with Naruto's. They kissed as Naruto's hands kept going with Yugito wiggling and gyrating. Sakura was shocked as her eyes couldn't pull away from what she was seeing. Naruto and this girl Yugito were making out and touching one another in very erotic ways. She then saw Yugito push her body back against Naruto and began grinding against it. Naruto was reciprocating the action with much enthusiasm. Naruto. I need more bed rest till I well enough to go, Yugito purred sensually. I concur. Need more rest, much more, Naruto groaned as he pushed his pelvis hard against Yugito's. With some quick actions the bed sheet was flung off and the door slammed shut, so there was only a flash of skin from Yugito. Sakura was now covered with said bed sheet. It took her a moment to realize what was on her, and when she did, she wrenched it off and threw to the ground violently like it was on fire. She then ran away as fast as she can. Sakura was annoyed and a bit angry. She had just left Tsunade's office and the blonde Hokage wasn't in a pleasant mood. Mainly because Naruto wasn't there for their morning check-in. This irked Sakura and she decided to head to Naruto's to give him a piece of her mind as well as a head bashing too. Oh, Naruto was going to get a punching that would rival that of Tsunade and Jiraiya's. She got to the door of Naruto's apartment and started banging on the door right off the bat. Naruto, get out here right now, Sakura screeched. She kept up her banging the door till it was wrenched open. Before the pink-haired Kunoichi were two girls. One was black-haired, the other a redhead. Both were wearing what appeared to be Naruto's shirts that barely covered themselves totally, considering that you could see they were wearing thongs. Their hair was a total mess, making look like they just crawled right out of bed. Sakura's eyes expanded to epic proportions at the appearance of these two. They were Kintsuchi and Tayuya. Both were former Sound Kunoichis, but they defect from their village. For Kin, Naruto saved her from getting by Kabuto, who was going to poison her through her IV. As for Tayuya, Kin convinced her to defect during the invasion. Tsunade, after being appointed as Hokage, made them be Naruto's responsibility. So that meant they lived in the apartment next to his. What the do you want, you flat-chested bitch? Tayuya asked, scowling at Sakura. Sakura said nothing, as her mind was doing her best to figure what the hell was going on, as well as not trying to come to the conclusion that it was leading to. It just couldn't be true, it just couldn't. Yeah, what are you doing here? Don't you have gay emo to be stalking somewhere? Kin asked. Both Kin and Tayuya didn't really care for Sakura, since the pink-haired girl was a fangirl and they only gave real, true Kunoichi like themselves a bad name. Plus, she interrupted some quality time they were having with a certain blonde-headed shinobi. They only tolerated Sakura since she was Naruto's teammate. Come on, you little cunt weed. We don't have all ing day. So spill it, Tayuya said, now getting really annoyed. We have more important things to do than stand here with you, Kin said, folding her arms across her chest. Sakura was still stunned at what she was seeing, and her mind was still fighting itself at reaching the most obvious conclusion to this situation. It just wasn't possible for this to even happen in her mind, that it was hard for her to even grasp it. What's taking you two so long? Naruto asked, as he appeared in between the two former sound Kunoichi. He wrapped his arms around their waists, pulling them tightly to him. Kin and Tayuya leaned into Naruto's hold as they rested their hands on his bare chest and laid their heads on his shoulders. Sakura's jaw dropped as she saw Naruto was only wearing a pair of boxers. He looked the same as Kin and Tayuya with his hairstyle. This only led more credence to her conclusion, but still her mind fought her. Oh Sakura, what are you doing here? Naruto asked. Sakura let out a sound. Sakura, are you there? Naruto asked. Again Sakura let out an unintelligible sound. Come on Naruto. Leave the cunt weed. The bed's calling and I'm in need of a ing, Tayuya said as she dragged Naruto away. Naruto said nothing as he was led away. Kin smirked as she watched the two and shut the door on Sakura's face. She followed the two to the bedroom. Neji was annoyed. No, that. He was practically pissed. He was going to ask Tenten to go out with him after so many years of her pining for him. He had decided enough was enough and he'd put her out of her misery. But then a snag, he was asked by Hiashi to look for his two missing daughters. Supposedly they never came back home last night after a training session. So Neji looked and looked, but no sign of either of his cousins. He then asked around and heard that the two sisters were last seen with Naruto of all people. So the Hyuga prodigy made his way to the blonde's apartment hoping to get some answers. When he got there he sighed and knocked on the door and waited. The door opened to reveal a boxer-clad Naruto rubbing his eyes with his blonde spiky hair, a total mess. Why so early? He mumbled. Sorry to wake you Naruto, but I am in need of your help, Neji said, ignoring Naruto's attire. With what? Naruto asked, yawning. I have heard you were the last to see Hinata and Hanabi, and I wonder if you could tell me where I can find them, Neji said. Naruto froze at this. Crap, what am I going to do? The blonde thought. Fate didn't seem to feel like playing by Naruto's rules at this time, and a figure appeared at the door hugging Naruto's side. Who's at the door so early? Hanabi. What are you doing here and wearing that? Neji asked with wide eyes. Before him was Hanabi Hyuga, Hinata's little sister and Neji's young cousin. Hanabi was wearing her jacket that looked just like Hinata's, and it was zipped up a bit, though it clearly showed that she had nothing on underneath, along with a pair of very skimpy panties that left nothing to the imagination. Neji glared at Naruto. Naruto gulped and grinned nervously. What is this, Naruto? Neji growled. Ease off, Neji. Naruto didn't do anything wrong. We were the ones to seduce him, Hinata said. The eldest Hyuga sister appeared and she was wearing one of Naruto's shirts that was small on her, and it only came to the top part of her panties, which were just as skimpy as her sister's. Neji's eyes were now bulging seeing this, and it had nothing to do with his Byakugan. Yeah, you have any idea how hard it was to seduce Naruto? He has a will of iron and it took everything sis and I had to get him to crack, Hanabi said devilish smile. I didn't hear you complain when we made out with each other, Hinata said. How could I complain with your tongue down my throat, Hanabi shot back. Good point, Hinata said with a smirk. Neji let out a choking sound as an unwanted visual image crossed his mind. Though what you did with your tongue made me squeal with so much delight, Hanabi said with a blissful smile on her face as she remembered the scene. I picked a few things from Anko, Hinata said with an Anko-like smirk. Really? You think she can teach me? Hanabi asked curiously. Sure. Anko likes teaching those kinds of things though Kurenai-sensei doesn't like me learning it, Hinata said. Neji let out another choking sound as more unwanted visuals crossed his mind. Really? Hanabi asked hopefully. Sure. Where do you think I learned to do that on Naruto? Hinata said with a smirk. Hanabi looked excited at the prospect of learning that. Ladies, as much as I like hearing you talk, we still have a guest here, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. The Hyuga sisters turned to their cousin who looked very green. Neji, go back and tell dad that we're fine and that Naruto is training us, Hinata said. Yeah, some real physical training, Hanabi said with a devilish grin. The rebuilding after Pain's invasion was going well. Hinata was taking a break from helping and heading towards Naruto's apartment. She knew she confessed her feelings to the blonde during the invasion yet hadn't heard from him. She was desperate to know the answer, so that's why she was heading to Naruto's. She got there and fixed herself up quickly, not wanting to look like she raced away the way here, which she did. With a deep breath she knocked on the door. There was no answer. This made Hinata frown, but then she knocked again, this time harder. The sound of shuffling feet was heard and Hinata got herself ready. She knew what she was going to say. When the door opened all the words left her because in front of her wasn't Naruto. No, it was a woman. A blue-haired woman. She was dressed with what looked like pieces of paper covering her body like a form-fitting bodysuit. Though this suit only covered just her torso, showing off her bare arms, legs and the top of her cleavage. Yes, can I help you? The woman asked. Who are you? Hinata asked stunned. My name is Conan, who are you? The woman asked. Hinata now remembered Conan. After the invasion Conan surrendered herself, but Naruto vouched for her and Tsunade decided that Conan wasn't a threat, but would still be watched. Naruto volunteered for the duty since he knew he was the only one she could trust. But why are you at Naruto's? The Hyuga heiress asked. Because no one would give her a room. Hinata turned her head from Conan and saw Naruto entering. He was wearing a pair of boxers and showing off his bod. Hinata felt her cheeks go red as a trickle of blood escaped from her nose. Her dirty part of her mind was screaming out. Me wanty now. Naruto wrapped his arms around Conan's waist and the paper covering her disappeared where Naruto touched her. She mewed as Naruto's hands got to work rubbing her tummy. Naruto began peppering kisses all over Conan's neck. You took so long, Conan, to get back, Naruto murmured. I am sorry, I was delayed, Conan said. That just means we need to extend our therapy session a bit longer then, Naruto said, nuzzling Conan's neck. Yes, longer and harder. Much harder, Conan moaned. Naruto grinned his foxy grin as his hands rose up Conan's body. The pieces of papers vanished in his hand's wake. Hinata let out an eep as she saw where this was going, but the two paid no mind to the Hyuga princess since they were so wrapped up in each other. Come on, Conan. The sofa is getting cold, Naruto said. Conan murmured as Naruto was ing on her neck. She then leapt up and Naruto caught her so he was holding her bridal style. See you tomorrow, Hinata, Naruto said. The turned and back kicked the door shut. Hinata stood there unsure what to think or do. Her dreams had come crashing down, it seemed. But there was a part of her brain that was quite active. That side was her perverted side. The sounds coming from the apartment echoed in her head. The moans, the grunts, groans, screams of utter pleasure and begging for more. Sakura Haruno leapt from rooftop to rooftop. Going through her mind was one person. Naruto. Her teammate and soon-to-be boyfriend in her mind. She had pushed aside any feelings she had for the blonde since she still remembered him as the hyperactive blonde from their childhood. Not the mature shinobi he has become. He was now a hero after defending Konoha and defeating Pain. Now Sakura thought it would be a great time to reward the hero. So now here she stood in front of Naruto's apartment. Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door. There was answer. This irked Sakura, but held her temper and tried again, but the same results. This was lighting the fuse to her anger, and soon she banging on the door. Naruto opened this door this instant. She was screaming. The door was yanked open and in front of a steamed Sakura was enraged girl. She was about the same age as Sakura and even about the same height. Her long lavender-colored hair hung loose and had that just out of bed quality. Her pupil-less eyes held much anger and annoyance. But what now caught Sakura and made her rage leave her to be replaced with shock was not only a girl and not Naruto answering the door, but what the girl was wearing. The girl was wearing jacket that was zipped enough to cover her, but not enough and you could tell she was underneath. Plus the fact that the jacket fell short and you could see the thong that the girl was wearing too. Who the hell are you and why are you banging on the door? The girl asked with steel in her voice. Sakura took an unconscious step back from the girl. Who am I? Who are you and why are you in Naruto's apartment? Sakura asked, regaining some of her confidence. I asked first, so who are you? The girl asked, keeping a glare on Sakura. I am Sakura, Naruto's teammate, and now who are you? Sakura asked. Oh Sakura. It's me Hinata, the girl said now in a more calm state. Hinata. Sakura yelped. Hinata just nodded. But, what are you doing here? Sakura asked. Well, I am here. Hinata never finished as Naruto came in and wrapped his arms around Hinata's waist. They quickly found their way into Hinata's jacket and began exploring her skin. Hinata's eyes widened first, then gently closed as soft moans erupted from her mouth. Oh Naruto, she sighed. Come back to bed, my goddess. We've got oh so much time to make up for. Naruto whispered in Hinata's ear, then he nibbled on said appendage. Sakura stood there in shock as she watched the scene. Naruto was completely topless, showing off the benefits of all that hard training he goes through. His bod was that of a god really. He was ripped, but not overly so. Naruto, we have company, Hinata whimpered as she felt Naruto's hand go higher on her body. Oh hey Sakura. What do you want? Naruto asked, just glancing at his teammate before getting back to enjoying Hinata. Well. Oh Naruto, Hinata moaned. Sakura couldn't take it, she had to get away from here. The sight was getting too much and she really didn't want to see anymore. But her feet were frozen to the floor. She couldn't move no matter how much she screamed mentally to run. Naruto. Hinata yelped as Naruto pinched her cheek. Back to bed, my Hime. I still have so much desire that needs to be sated, Naruto growled into Hinata's ear as he grounded his pelvis into Hinata's backside. Hinata moaned as she grounded her butt into Naruto's pelvis and even clenched her butt cheeks to grasp Naruto's package. I have my desire too, that needs sating also, she panted. In a flash the jacket was flung off and the door was slammed shut. The jacket now was covering Sakura's head. She could smell so much in the article of clothing and it took a few moments for her to realize the smells, and she wrenched off the jacket and threw it to the ground like it was the plague infested. She then heard the noises. The moans, groans, giggles, grunts, everything, and with that her feet finally listened to her. Haku opened her eyes as the sunshine became too bright. She groaned slightly and buried her head into her pillow. She then realized her pillow was quite fleshy and warm. Her eyes flashed open to see that her head was resting on someone's chest. She looked up to see a whiskered face blonde. A smile graced her face as she then snuggled in deeper. Her memory replayed what had happened last night. The past few nights Haku would go out after Zabuza was asleep. She would usually dose him with an herb that made him fall asleep so she could escape easier. She would then make her way to the meeting place and meet her blonde lover. Every night they'd spend together cuddling and making out, which usually led to more. It felt so amazing doing something so wrong. I mean, you're sleeping with your enemy, but that was what made it feel so thrilling. Not to mention her lover never failed her, ever from making her see that bright white light. Morning, my snowflake, Naruto greeted as he kissed the top of Haku's head. Haku looked up and smiled brightly at Naruto. Morning, Naruto, how'd you sleep? She asked. Great. I always sleep great with you, Naruto said as he caressed her body. Haku moaned. Though she had redressed after their time to keep from getting cold, it never stopped Naruto's wandering hands to sneak in sometime during the night and find and hold her. She loved it. His slightly rough hands on her soft, smooth skin, making not only goosebumps arise, but also sparks of pleasure rocket through her body. Naruto, have I ever told you how wonderful your hands are? Haku gasped as Naruto's hands palmed her body under her kimono. Every morning, but never stop saying it, Naruto said as he kissed her. Haku moaned into the kiss as she made to remove Naruto's pants. A crash was heard that alerted the both of them. They leapt up uncaring about their state of dress and drawn whatever weapon that was close to them. Haku always had Senbon needles on her and had some ready to throw. Naruto had grabbed a kunai and was in a defensive stance. Coming out of the woods was Zabuza, his Zenbatto ready for action. Haku, where the? Zabuza froze as he caught sight of his tool and the blonde he had faced several days ago. But that wasn't the only thing that shocked him. It was the fact that Haku was a girl. He just thought Haku was an effeminate boy or something who liked to dress as a girl to play the part. Never in his mind did he think Haku was a real girl. That changed after catching a bit of Haku's skin under her kimono that had come undone thanks to Naruto's hands. Then there was the fact that the blonde and Haku were together and the state of their dress, and it didn't take long for the demon of the mist to figure out what was going on. Lord Zabuza, you shouldn't be up, you're still badly hurt, Haku said as she made her way to the missing nin. Zabuza let out an "URK" and backed away quickly. My mistake. I'll just be going now. Carry on with what you're doing. Haku, come back when you feel like, and please don't tell me what you've been doing. Bye. The missing nin said, then raced away as fast as he could. All of this was too much to see, and now he needed sake, lots and lots of sake to erase it from his mind. Naruto and Haku stood there watching the dust cloud that Zabuza had left. Huh, so where were we? Naruto asked, turning back to Haku. I should return to see how Lord Zabuza is doing, Haku said worriedly. Naruto pulled Haku into a passionate kiss. His hands resumed what they were doing as they went under Haku's kimono. But later, he seemed fine, Haku said when she was able to break the kiss. I was thinking the same thing, Naruto said as he dragged Haku again to resume what had been interrupted. Haku checked on Zabuza much later. Hinata made her way down a familiar path. It was the same one she took when she was watching Naruto. It was the same route he took home, and she could walk this with her eyes closed, she was so familiar with it. Today was the day though. She was going to confess her undying feelings to Naruto Uzumaki, the whiskered-faced blonde-haired shinobi that has been deeply seated within her mind since her days at the academy. Her cheeks were bright red as she went over how she was going to approach him and what his reaction will be. She went over and over what she was going to say and do. Her imagination didn't help though, as it went from her confessing her feelings to Naruto to him sweeping her off her feet and kissing her, and then his hand began traveling. Then the moaning, groaning. Oh God. A bit of blood leaked from the Hyuga princess's nose as her fantasy got out of control. Her face was so red that it could be used as a beacon that planes used to land on those bad weather days. She shook her head as she refocused her mind and not get away from what needed to be done. She also wiped away the droplets of blood too. She had to look presentable for Naruto. A long string of self-talk was uttered under her breath as she psyched herself up for the moment. She wasn't going to faint this time. Nope. She was going to do it. She got to the door that was the entrance to Naruto's apartment. With a very shaky hand, which was shaking so badly she had to use her other hand to stop the massive tremors. She took a couple of deep breaths and raised her hand again, this time no shaking. She then knocked on the door. There was no answer. Hinata knew Naruto was home. She had seen him the day before training like crazy. She passed out when she saw him take his shirt off. That boy was ripped. Anyway, the point was she knew Naruto was home and he wasn't on any missions. She made sure and checked beforehand. He must still be asleep. He worked really hard yesterday, she thought. Again she knocked, and harder this time. And again no answered. This caused Hinata to frown and was about to give up when she heard sounds coming from within the apartment. She readied herself for what was to come. The door opened and Hinata's pupil-less eyes widened in shock. In front of her was not Naruto, but an older woman. She had long black messy hair, ample cleavage, and was covered by a bed sheet that was wrapped around her and tucked in to just show the top of her S. But what Hinata caught was the red eyes that looked very sleepy and annoyed. "What do you want?" The black-haired growled. "KK Kuronai-sensei." Hinata stuttered out in shock. "Huh? Hinata, what are you doing here?" Kuronai asked as her anger and annoyance disappeared. I was going to, that was," Hinata fumbled. "Hinata, take a few deep breaths and calm down," Kuronai said calmly. Hinata took a few deep breaths and was about to ask Kuronai what she was doing here. Since her mind had yet to make the connection that was so obvious. It just wouldn't cross her mind that her sensei was there for that and doing you know what with her crush. Nope, that was quite impossible in her mind. "Kuronai, what's taking so long, my ruby-eyed goddess?" Naruto came sauntering in and wrapped his arms around Kuronai's waist with his hands sneaking into the sheet seeking the soft flesh underneath. "Naruto," Kuronai gasped as she felt Naruto's talented hands and fingers play with her taut tummy and move upwards. Hinata was in shock. Here was her teacher, the woman she trusted with all of her secrets and the boy she's had a crush on since forever. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some sort of genjutsu. Yeah, that was it. It was a genjutsu. She tried to break it, but it didn't work. Before her was still Kuronai and Naruto and looked like things were getting very heated now. Hinata could see the outlines of Naruto's hands and they were on Kuronai's. The Junin was moaning as her head was tilted to the side as Naruto peppered kisses all over her neck and shoulder. "Do you feel how hard you get me, Kuronai? I just can't get enough of you," Naruto growled as he grounded his pelvis into Kuronai's. "Oh god, Naruto," Kuronai moaned as she reciprocated the grinding. All this was overwhelming Hinata. The erotic sight before was something she had never seen before. Her cheeks were bright red due to watching this. "Come my Hime, time for more," Naruto said huskily. Neji wasn't in a happy mood since he was going to ask Tenten out today, but he couldn't find her anyway. He thought that Tenten would be thrilled since she had always liked him since they were genin. Yes, she was as forward nowadays, but he still knew that Tenten felt something for him and he was going to put her out of her misery to take her out on a date. But how was he going to do that when he couldn't her anywhere? He looked everywhere and no sign of her at all. He finally heard from someone that Tenten was last seen last night with one Naruto Uzumaki. So he headed to Naruto hoping he knew where Tenten was. He got to Naruto's apartment and knocked on the door. He then tapped his foot as he waited, but nothing. He sighed and knocked again. He did this several times before he was just about fed up and ready to leave. That's when the door opened. Neji's eyes widened at who it was. Before him was Tenten, but Tenten was wearing only a bed sheet with her brown hair in a total mess. "What do you want?" she asked as she yawned. Neji just stared at Tenten in total shock. "Huh? Oh Neji, what are you doing here?" Tenten asked. "I was, looking for you," Neji said. "You were? Oh, well here I am," Tenten said. "I see that, but why are you here and dressed like that?" Neji asked. Tenten looked down at what she was wearing and blushed slightly as she remembered what happened last night. "Well Tenten?" Neji asked. Before Tenten could speak, a voice was heard from inside the apartment. "Tenten, who's at the door, my weapons goddess?" Soon Naruto appeared just in his boxers. He wrapped his arms around Tenten's waist and nuzzled his face into Tenten's neck. Naruto, Tenten groaned. Naruto began peppering Tenten's neck with kisses as his hands slipped into the bed sheet to her warm soft skin. Tenten sighed as she felt Naruto's hands on her skin, her eyes fluttered shut. You smell good, Tenten. I just want to lick you all over, Naruto murmured into Tenten's ear. Oh Naruto, feels so good, Tenten moaned. Neji just stood there unable to keep his eyes away. His mouth was doing a good impression of a fish out of water. No sound was being uttered. His brain was going smoking due to overheating as his heart seemed to stop due to extreme shock. Tenten spun around and wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and kissed him hard on the mouth. Naruto's arms tightened around Tenten's waist. They continued to kiss as Tenten raised one of her legs, revealed her well-toned, slightly tanned leg. She wrapped it around Naruto's waist showing in great flexibility and began to grind herself against Naruto. Naruto groaned and reciprocated the gesture with his own grinding. Tenten finally pulled away from Naruto enough to turn to Neji. See you tomorrow, Neji. I've got some serious training to do right now, she said huskily. She then pushed Naruto back into the apartment and back-kicked the door shut. Yugao Azuki was running around trying her two friends. She wasn't happy that she hadn't found either yet. She knew the two had went out last night like they usually do. She wasn't able to do that since she was on duty. But now she couldn't find either of them and that worried her a bit. She went by both of their places hoping they'd be there so they could hang out or something. But they weren't there. She knew they were in the village and not on any mission of any kind. So where were they? The Anbu checked all the areas that either one and both frequented. They weren't there and this got her more worried. Soon she heard some people talking. She moved in close wanting to know what they were saying, but not being seen. As an Anbu she was greatly skilled in this. Plus the people weren't even paying attention to their surroundings. Civilians, she thought. You here? The first person said. No. What? The second person asked. The demon brat was seen with the snake bitch and the ice bitch, the first person said. No way, you're yanking my chain, the second person said. I am not, I saw them together, the first person said. Whatever, the second person said scoffing. Yugao had heard enough and decided to check it out. Rumors weren't something to go by on, but she was desperate and this was something. So she headed to Naruto's apartment. She knew where it was since she used to be a part of the group of Anbu that watched over the blonde when he was younger. She got there and knocked on the door. There was no answer. Again she knocked. This time harder. Again no answer. A third time she knocked and then she heard a sound. Who the is at the door at this hour? Yugao knew this voice, but before she could say or think anything the door opened up. In front of her was her good friend Anko. The purple-haired special Junin was almost except for her pale purple panties and her trademark trench coat. Yugao, what the hell are you doing here? Anko asked in a grumble. I was looking for, you, Yugao said stunned though she shouldn't be since she had seen her friend wearing less. Oh, does the Hokage need something? Anko asked. No, Yugao said, but she wasn't able to finish her sentence. What she saw next was shocking to her even more than Anko. It was her other friend Kuronai. The black-haired, red-eyed beauty was only wearing shirt that went down enough to cover her S and a pair of black lace panties. Anko, what's keeping you? You know how I can't take him alone. The Genjutsu mistress asked. Sorry Kuronai, a bit busy here, Anko said. Huh, oh hey Yugao. What's up? Kuronai asked casually. What's going on here? Yugao asked. Before Anko or Kuronai could answer, a new member joined the mini-party. It was Naruto. He came in to stand between the two women and wrapped his arms around their waists. His hands moved up quickly to their chests. He was wearing a pair of boxers with toads on it. Ladies, the bed is getting cold and I'm getting lonely, he said. Sorry Naruto, we didn't mean to. We got sidetracked, Kuronai said. Yeah, what she said, Anko said through a groan of pleasure as she felt Naruto's hand caressing her. Yugao was totally shocked at what she was seeing and she could feel herself getting turned on. She hadn't had a lover since Hayate died. Say Yugao, how about you join us? Anko suggested as she saw the glint in Yugao's eye. What? Yugao stuttered. Anko, what are you thinking? Kurenai asked as she looked at her best friend. What? The more the merrier, besides we need backup. You and I could barely handle this beast last night, Anko said as she moved one of her hands and rubbed Naruto's groin. Kurenai was about to say something when she felt Naruto's hand pinch hard, making her gasp. I guess you're right, she uttered out. Great. So Yugao is it? Come on in and join the fun, Naruto said with a wide foxy grin as he eyed Yugao intensely. Yugao shivered seeing Naruto look at her and she gave in. She needed this and she wasn't going to fight it. She was tugged in by both Anko and Kurenai. She back-kicked the door shut. The three women never left Naruto's apartment till the next day and they all walked home bow-legged and with dopey, I've just had the best ever, smiles on their faces. Their only thoughts going through their minds aside from remembering their glorious time they had with Naruto was wondering when they could do it again. Neji Hyuga was annoyed. Scratch that, he was super annoyed. First he couldn't find his teammate Tenten so he could do some training since his insane sensei and his equally insane teammate were off doing their own madness, which they call training. But then as he returned to the Hyuga compound only to be sent out by Hiashi to find Hinata since she was missing. Now here he was trying to find the missing Hyuga as well as hoping to find his missing teammate as well. He ended up winding up at the door Naruto's apartment. He had heard many rumors that stated that both girls were last seen with the blonde. Neji usually didn't take much stock in rumors, but these were quite strong so he followed them. With a calming breath he knocked on the door. There was no answer. Neji knew Naruto was still in the village since he saw Sakura and asked her and she told him that Naruto should be around. So he knocked again. After several of hard knocks there came a sound and Neji stood waiting. The door opened and what he saw shocked him. There was Hinata. She was rubbing her eyes with one hand. What shocked him even more was Hinata's appearance. She was wearing a t-shirt and a pair of boxers that wasn't hers and her normally perfect hair was askew. The t-shirt just covered her body and any slight movement made it run up showing off her stomach and show of her panties clearly. What do you want it? Too early? Hinata asked yawning. Hinata. Neji asked. Oh Neji, what are you doing here? Hinata asked blinking awake. It took a few moments for Neji to regain his focus since the shock of seeing Hinata dressed like that was still blowing his system. Hinata, what are you doing? Neji finished since he got his second shock of the day. Because another figure entered that Neji was very familiar with. It was Tenten, but unlike Hinata, Tenten wasn't dressed as modest as her. No, Tenten just had on a thong and a very familiar orange jacket that was open and it was only Tenten's hands that kept it closed enough not to reveal too much. Her brown hair was a mess from getting out of bed. Hinata, what's keeping you, or missing you? The weapons mistress whispered into Hinata's ear. Sorry Tenten, but I am being delayed here, Hinata said gesturing to Neji, who was standing there gaping at Tenten. Tenten turned her head since she didn't even notice Neji at first. Huh, oh hey Neji. So Hinata come back to bed. He's missing you, and so am I, Tenten said adding the last part as she smacked Hinata's rump. Hinata jumped at that and gave Tenten a stern look. Tenten acted all innocent. Neji finally got his brain rebooted after seeing such a sight that is Tenten. What are you doing here Tenten? He asked. I am here because Hinata is here. As you know 2 is better than 1, Tenten said with a mysterious grin. Neji was completely confused by this, but Hinata blushed brightly at this and began to mumble and stutter under her breath. But before Neji could ask what his teammate meant a third figure appeared. It was Naruto and he was only wearing a pair of boxers. He got into between the two and wrapped an arm around their waists. He kissed both of them on the neck. The two girls murmured in pleasure as his lips graced their skin. You two are taking way too long, he said. Sorry Naruto, we didn't mean to, Hinata said. Yeah, we got held by Neji here, Tenten said. Neji? Oh hey Neji, what's up? Naruto asked. Neji's face was going from anger to shock. He didn't know which emotion felt right for this situation. Naruto, what is going on here? He growled as a vein was bulging from his forehead and it had nothing to do with his Byakugan. Nothing much Neji. We were having a private training session, which you interrupted, Naruto said nonchalantly. This made Neji's eye twitch as the vein bulge pulsated. Come on Hinata. Naruto. Back to the trenches. We still got a lot of work left to do, Tenten said as she tugged Naruto by the boxers and Hinata by the collar. Yes, Neji tell my dad that I am busy, training and won't be home till late, Hinata said not even fighting back against Tenten. Or maybe not at all, Tenten said with a saucy wink. Yeah, Hinata said blushing like mad. Right, back to training for us. See ya Neji, Naruto said. The three left and slammed the door on Neji's face. Neji was angry, but wasn't sure where to direct his anger. Was he angry that Naruto and Hinata were together, that Naruto was with Tenten or that Naruto was with Hinata and Tenten? Naruto. Neji screamed and then passed out due to overload of anger, shock and everything else. Sakura was heading to Naruto's apartment. She had no clue where Sasuke was and wanted to know, and her only hope was Naruto since she couldn't find her lazy sensei anywhere either. She got to Naruto's door and began banging away. Naruto, she shouted. There was no answer and Sakura kept her pounding till the door was wrenched open. Before Sakura was a girl that looked vaguely familiar to her. She had long dark hair that went her back, though at moment it was a complete mess. Her eyes were hard and full of annoyance at Sakura for disturbing her. Who are you and where is Naruto? Sakura demanded. I think I should be asking the questions Pinky since you're the one banging on people's doors and screaming to high heaven, the girl said coolly as she folded her arms across her chest. Sakura then realized where she recognized the girl. It was that girl from Sound that held her up by the hair when she was in the forest of death. Kin was her name. What happened was Naruto stopped Kabuto from Kin to mostly likely used for some nefarious purpose, no doubt. Naruto had been trying to find Sasuke when he came upon the injured Kin with Kabuto standing over her ready to her. Naruto stopped Kabuto from doing the deed, though Kabuto escaped. Anyway, after that Kin confessed what her job was. She was placed in the custody of Naruto to be watched over. The Hokage saw the connection between Naruto and Kin and thought it would be better for the former Sound Kunoichi to be watched over someone around their own age instead of an Anbu. Besides, the Anbu were busy trying to find Kabuto. After Sakura remembered all of this, she then got a look at what Kin was wearing, which wasn't much really. The dark brunette's attire consisted of a bed sheet that covered her entire body with it tucked under her S. The pink-haired Kunoichi was shocked at the attire Kin was wearing and was about to shriek at her some more for being indecent when Naruto appeared wearing only just his boxers and wrapped his arms around Kin's waist and began nuzzling her neck, making her murmur and purr. Naruto, the former Sound Kunoichi said. Sakura was shocked at what she was seeing. Her mouth was doing a very good imitation of a fish out of water. Naruto hadn't seen Sakura at all as he ravished Kin's neck with his mouth as his hands caressed and massaged Kin's body before sneaked their way inside the sheet, touching her bare skin. Kin gasped and then let out a guttural groan of want and need. Naruto, Kin moaned. I love the sounds you make, my sweet belle, Naruto murmured into Kin's ear. Naruto, we've got an audience, Kin said, though she was thoroughly enjoying Naruto's attention to her to even really care. I don't care, you're too damn wide to ignore, Naruto murmured as his hands began raising up, massaging Kin's supple body in a tender and sensual fashion. Sakura couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her eyes wide as she couldn't seem to look away from the sight. She was flush in the cheeks as she hadn't moved a muscle at all. Kin spun around and wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and began kissing hard. She was grinding her groin into Naruto's. Naruto reciprocated as his tongue and Kin's did battle. Sakura finally turned her head away at the sight since it was so erotic for her really. Her cheeks were now a deep crimson. Naruto finally broke the kiss and he saw Sakura for the first time. "Oh Sakura, what are you doing here?" he asked like he and Kin hadn't been making out heavily as they dry humped one another. "I, was, wondering if you knew where Sasuke was." Sakura asked keeping her eyes averted from Naruto and Kin. Kin was continuing her grinding against Naruto, getting more aggressive to keep Naruto's attention on her and not the pink-haired shrieking banshee. "That bastard, no idea where he is and I don't really care," Naruto said as Kin was peppering his face and with kisses. Sakura got angry with this and turned to Naruto to shriek at him. Kin however took action before Sakura could even begin. She lifted her leg up revealing the now bare appendage and showing off that she had a band that was wrapped around her thigh. She pulled out a few Senbon needles from the band and threw them at Sakura in a deft manner. They hit Sakura's neck making her collapse unconscious in a heap on the floor. "Was that necessary?" Naruto asked seeing the unconscious Sakura. "I rather keep my hearing, and besides we've got more important things to do," Kin said as she purred into Naruto's ear as she pressed her groin harder into Naruto. Naruto groaned as he closed his eyes. "Shit Kin," he said as he pulled her into the apartment. Tsunade wasn't very happy at all. She had been waiting for the priestess from Demon Country, but she had yet shown up. With a growl she rose from her seat to drag this uppity priestess from wherever she was staying. "Lady Tsunade, where are you going?" Sakura asked. "To get that damn priestess," Tsunade muttered angrily. Sakura gulped and raced after her teacher in hopes to stop any bloodshed. She knew what Tsunade was like when the Sannin was in a bad mood and it looked like Tsunade was in one of those right now. She really didn't want Tsunade to cause an international incident because of tardiness. The two Kunoichi made their way to the hotel the priestess was staying and got her room number. When they got there Tsunade took a couple deep breaths to calm herself then knocked on the door. There was no answer and Tsunade growled. She then knocked again, this time harder. This went on till Tsunade was about to slam a chakra-enhanced fist into the door when it opened. Who was at the door shocked both Tsunade and Sakura. It was Naruto. Naruto was only wearing a pair of boxers that had toads and bowls of ramen on them with a bright orange background. Sakura blushed madly as she turned her head away. She had never seen Naruto so bare before. He had a nicely sculpted chest and six-pack abs due to all the training he put himself through as well-muscled arms though not overly so. His shaggy blonde hair made him look wired due to him just getting out of bed. Tsunade however wasn't embarrassed at all since she had done many medical checkups for the Konoha shinobi and what's one more bare-chested body. She had seen Naruto like this before anyway. What she wanted to know though was why Naruto was here. "Brat, what are you doing here?" the Hokage asked. "Huh, Sakura, Granny, what are you two doing here?" Naruto asked. Tsunade growled as she balled her fist wanting to slam it into Naruto's head. A vein bulged in her forehead. "Brat," she growled. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Sakura asked wanting her mentor to focus. "Well, I am here because," Naruto was cut off. "Naruto, where are you? You've yet to fulfill your obligation." Soon Shion, the priestess of Demon Country, appeared. She was wearing a kimono with white koi fish on it. She wrapped her arms around Naruto's waist feeling up his abs and chest. Sakura was shocked at this and her green eyes bugled. Tsunade was shocked too. Her jaw dropped. She wondered if she was drunk or something. "Shion, you're insatiable," Naruto said. It's only because you know what to do so well," Shion purred. Naruto turned his head and kissed Shion. Shion moaned as grabbed Naruto's head to keep their lips together. Naruto turned around and wrapped his arms around Shion tight that made her squeak and groan as her body was pressed against Naruto's. Tsunade and Sakura could only watch as Naruto and Shion made out with one another without even caring that they were there. "Oh Naruto," Shion moaned. Shion," Naruto murmured. His hand snuck into Shion's kimono and was exploring the bare skin underneath. Sakura and Tsunade couldn't see what Naruto was touching, not to say they wanted to see, but they saw the bulges in Shien's kimono where Naruto's hand roamed. Both were feeling a bit hot under the collar at the sight. Let's go back to bed, Naruto. You still need to extend the priestess line, Shien said after she broke the kiss. With great pleasure, Naruto growled. He kicked the door shut in Sakura and Tsunade's face. The two then began hearing moans, groans and giggles coming through the door. This broke them from their stupor. Lady Tsunade. Sakura croaked. Yes, Sakura. Tsunade asked. Can we get a drink? Sakura asked. Yes, we can. Lots and lots of drinks, Tsunade said, already thinking of all the sake she'd need to drink to rid herself of what she had just seen. Sasuke was pissed as he went to track down his mother. She wasn't anywhere to be found in the Uchiha compound, and this pissed him off and scared him at the same time. Pissed that he had to halt his training so he could his brother to find his mom, and scared since she was the only Uchiha left besides himself. Soon he got to a door where he hoped to get some answers. He banged on the door hard, not caring whatsoever. Loser. Open this damn door this instant. The last male Uchiha shouted. There was no answer, so Sasuke kept hammering the door till it was wrenched open. What Sasuke saw stunned him and scared him a bit too. Before him was his mom, and she was beyond pissed. Now Makoto Uchiha was a very kind soul to everyone in the village. Some say she couldn't harm a fly. What they didn't know was she was an experienced Kunoichi and deadly in her own right. In the bingo book was called the Red Eyes of Death. She was called that since if you met her on the battlefield, those Sharingan eyes of hers would be the last thing you'd ever see. So Sasuke standing there staring at the feared Kunoichi, the Red Eyes of Death. Her Sharingan eyes ablaze, ready to. What do you want? She spat out. Mom, Sasuke stuttered out, now feeling very small in the face of his mother's anger. Unknown to him, he leaked a little, wetting himself due to total fear. Oh, Sasuke. What are you doing here? Makoto asked, now with her Sharingan deactivated and back to her calm, kind nature. What am I doing here? What are you here with that loser? Sasuke asked, now regaining his arrogant bluster. That's none of your business, Sasuke, Makoto said sternly. What neither had noticed was Makoto's attire, well, lack of. All she was wearing was a bed sheet. It covered her still firm and toned body. Even though she had mostly retired from shinobi life, she kept herself in shape just in case she was called back in for any reason. It is my business, Sasuke said in an arrogant tone. No, it isn't, young man, Makoto said sternly. Sasuke was about to retort when something happened. Naruto appeared from behind Makoto and wrapped his arms around Makoto's waist, pulling her back to his chest. He then began nuzzling her neck, peppering the area with kisses. Makoto groaned as she tilted her neck, giving Naruto more access. Her hands stroking Naruto's arms that were around her. What's taking so long, my red-eyed angel? Naruto asked. Sorry, Naruto dear, it's just my son, Makoto said. Naruto moved his head away from Makoto's neck, making her groan from the loss of his lips. He looked at Sasuke, who was stunned. His mouth was doing a great fish out of water impression as his face seemed to cycle from between anger and shock. It looked like his eyes had twitches. Oh, hey bastard, what do you want? Makoto and I were in the middle of something, Naruto asked. What are you doing with my mother? Sasuke snapped angrily. Taking care of needs she'd been needing taken care of, Naruto said as his hands began roaming Makoto's bed sheet covered body. Makoto moaned as Naruto's hands massaged and caressed her body. They rubbed her taut tummy over the cloth before slipping under to get to her bare skin before moving up so tortuously slow. Loser. Get your hands off my mom, Sasuke barked. Why? Your mom seems to be enjoying the attention, Naruto said with a smirk as his hands rose even further. Makoto gasped at where they landed and she threw her head back, moaning. Oh Naruto, such marvelous fingers you have. More, she panted. With pleasure, but to do that we've got to get rid of one annoyance, Naruto said as he nibbled on Makoto's ear. Makoto turned her head to her son. Sasuke returned to the compound. I'll return when I am good, ready and absolutely satisfied, she said in a commanding tone. The door slammed shut in Sasuke's face and his ears picked up on giggling, moaning, groaning and panting come from within the apartment. The fact that most of those sounds were from his mother blew his mind and it was too much for him to take. His brain melted and he fell to the ground only to be dragged away by his rabid fangirls, who had followed him, to give him medical assistance. Kankuro grumbled as he went to wake his sister up. He was forced into this job by Gaara, who gave Kankuro a glare when Kankuro asked him to do it. Gaara may be more stable now, but he still had that cold deadly stare down that even now still scared people. So this led Kankuro climbing up the stairs to his sister's bedroom. He was grumbling about this job. He soon go to Temari's door and knocked on it. Yo sis, time to get up, he said. There was no answer. Hey Temari, wake up. Come on, Kankuro said, knocking on the door again. Again there was no answer. Kankuro was annoyed by this and began banging on the door. Hey, wake up Temari, he shouted. The door was wrenched open and there was a pissed off Temari. Her blonde hair was unruly from being slept on. She was wearing a kimono that was quickly and haphazardly tied to cover her modesty. Her green eyes were ablaze with rage. What the hell do you want, Kankuro? She growled. Finally, you're awake, Kankuro said in a grumble. Yes, no thanks to you. Don't you have a new shade or color to try on or something? Temari asked, still pissed. Kankuro got pissed since he was stuck into this job. Well, excuse me princess, but it was time for you to get up, he said. If Temari had her fan she'd have slammed it down on Kankuro's head right now, but she didn't. So she settled with a murderous glare instead. It worked since Kankuro back up a bit in fear of Temari's wrath. Temari, my goddess of the winds, it's too early for shouting unless you're screaming my name in sheer pleasure. This new voice startled Kankuro and made Temari blush madly as she remembered the details of last night. Soon Naruto appeared at the door, bare-chested, only wearing a pair of boxers. His spiky blonde hair a mess. He pulled Temari to him and kissed her hard, making her moan as she got lost in the kiss. Kankuro stood there absolutely shocked at what he was seeing. What the hell? What's he doing here? He shouted as he pointed at Naruto. Isn't obvious, girly boy? I am enjoying the delights of Suna's greatest treasure, Naruto said as he squeezed Temari's eyes tightly. Temari squeaked as she blushed brightly at this. She hid her face in Naruto's chest. Kankuro was sputtering as his brain tried to engage. Come back to bed, Temari. You said it was your day off and I don't have to get back to Konoha for a few more days. We need to enjoy our time together to the full advantage, Naruto said as his hand massaged her and moved to the front to sneak into her kimono. Temari moaned as she felt Naruto rubbed her butt cheek. Usually a move like that from anyone other than Naruto would get a crack in the head by her fan. She felt on fire as she felt Naruto's hands touching her bare skin. God, she had to fight every urge to ravage him here and now right in front of her brother. Yes, mustn't waste such precious time, she murmured as she was slowly getting consumed by her carnal side. Kankuro was still sputtering as he stared. Kankuro, go tell Gaara that it's my day off today and I'll be out of contact for the rest of the day. He'll know what I mean, Temari said with her eyes full of lust to her fellow blonde that was eyeing her with the same lustful look. She then dragged Naruto back into her room as she back-kicked the door shut. The sounds of moans, giggles and groans were heard through the door and Kankuro just stood there frozen. He didn't know how long he stood there until Gaara shook him out of his stupor. Gaara, what are you doing here? Kankuro asked. You haven't reported in yet, Gaara said. Oh, yeah, wait. Temari, Naruto. They are. They're, Kankuro babbled. There, Gaara said emotionlessly. Wait, you knew? Kankuro asked, totally shocked. I did. I asked Naruto to stay and I asked Temari to show him around as personal favor for me even though it would during the days she has off, Gaara said. But they are, Kankuro said confused. I know, and I approve. Now come on, you've got missions to undertake, Gaara said, then began walking away. Kankuro stood there in utter shock. Gaara knew what Naruto and Temari were doing and was alright with it. Not only alright with it, but he approved of it. His mind was overloading with everything. He didn't even see the sand wrapping around him and dragging him to the cage tower. Kakashi sighed as he looked up from his book. It was getting a bit late and he decided it had been enough time. So he got up and put his book away in his pouch and headed upstairs. He got to a door and knocked on it. There was no answer. He frowned and knocked again. Again no answer. The masked Junin sighed and knocked for a third time. This time he heard shuffling from the other side of the door. Soon it opened and in front of the Junin was Naruto. What do you want? The tired blonde asked as he rubbed his eyes. Naruto, what are you doing here? Kakashi asked. Huh? Naruto asked as he yawned. Kakashi was really wondering what was going on. The door he knocked on was supposed to be Haku's. During the fight on the bridge, Haku survived, though Zabuza died after Ngato and his band of mercenaries before succumbing to his wounds that he had received. Haku had been resting to restore her strength. Kakashi had promised Zabuza that he'd take care of Haku in the missing nin's dying wish. Kakashi honored it. But why was Naruto standing here instead of Haku? That was the question bugging the Junin. Naruto, why are you in Haku's room? The masked Junin asked. Huh? Oh well, you see. I heard Haku crying last night and I came in to check on her and, well, Naruto said, faltering off in the end as he rubbed his bed hair. Kakashi narrowed his eye and was about to say something when Haku appeared. She was wearing her kimono, but in a thrown-on fashion. She had this glow about her that only came by doing one thing. She wrapped her arms around Naruto's waist and Kakashi realized Naruto was just in his boxers, which by the way had ramen bowls with angel wings on them. Naruto, come back to bed. I miss you, Haku purred. In a moment, Haku, Naruto said. But I want you now. I miss feeling you beside me, Haku pouted. Naruto sighed and pecked Haku's lips with his own. Haku took advantage of this and grabbed Naruto's head and deepened the peck into a full-blown passionate kiss. Naruto's eyes widened then closed as he let himself go. Kakashi watched as his student and Haku made out passionately in front of him. It was shocking to say the least. Then he saw Naruto turn himself and wrap Haku tightly in an embrace of lovers. Kakashi knew this was an intimate and private act that he shouldn't be staring at, but he couldn't turn his eyes away. A tiny bit of blood leaked from his nose. Haku and Naruto were still kissing as their tongues did battle with one another. Haku then began grinding herself against Naruto as she lifted one of her legs to push Naruto closer to her. This also made her bare her leg, but she didn't care at all. Naruto felt so hard, so good against her. She moaned and groaned as she continued her movements. Naruto grunted as he reciprocated Haku's actions with his own. They were humping one another without a care, it seemed. In every movement they made they tugged at one another's clothes, getting closer and closer to ravishing each other right then and there, not caring that Kakashi was standing right there. Kakashi seemed to sense this and really didn't want to see that. He cleared his throat loudly. Nothing. He then did it again and that got their attention. Naruto blushed madly since his sensei had watched him in action. Haku was blushing too with embarrassment. Kakashi, I didn't see you were there, she said. Yes, I believe it could be difficult to see me with you being quite occupied, Kakashi said with amusement. Yeah, well, Kakashi-sensei, is there something you need? Naruto asked. Not at the moment, I just wanted to make sure Haku was alright after what had all happened. I can see she's in good hands with you though, Naruto. I just have one order for you, Kakashi said. What is it, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked nervously. Keep doing what you're doing, keep up the good work, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Naruto blushed madly as he nodded. Haku grinned and tugged Naruto's hand. Come Naruto, you must always obey your sensei, she said with tones of lust in her voice. Naruto nodded and followed Haku like a puppy. He closed the door. Kakashi could hear the muffled moans, groans, pants and other sounds and grinned. He then walked away. Sakura was excited. Koyuki Kazahana has come to Konoha to negotiate a new treaty. She just had to tell Naruto since she knew he'd be psyched about meeting her again. So she raced across rooftops to get her blonde teammate's apartment. Once there, she knocked on the door. No answer, so she knocked harder. Still no answer. Sakura did this for a while till she got fed up and began pounding on the door. Naruto, get up, you lazy! She shouted. The door was opened as Sakura was about to pound again. Her fist stopped as her green eyes widened at who was at the door. It couldn't be, it just couldn't be. Her mouth went dry and no words could come to her. What do you want? Before, Sakura was a very pissed off Koyuki. She looked just as amazing as she did all those years ago when she first met her. But the only difference was that Koyuki wasn't wearing any clothes at all. Well, she was wearing a bed sheet, but I don't think that qualifies as clothing, does it? Sakura stuttered and mumbled in response. Well, you have interrupted something very important and I want to get back to it without much delay, Koyuki said angrily. Sakura just nodded, still in shock at what she was seeing in front of her. What in the world is Koyuki doing here? She thought. Before Sakura could ask this out loud, Naruto appeared in a white wife beater and a pair of boxers. He wrapped his arms around Koyuki's waist and held her tight. Koyuki leaned against Naruto as she relaxed in his arms. What's keeping you, my queen? I thought you had important business to discuss with me. Naruto asked. I do, but we got this interruption, Koyuki said, gesturing to Sakura. Naruto looked to Sakura. Hey Sakura, he greeted, then went back to Koyuki. Sakura was trying to wrap her mind around what was going on here. This couldn't be happening, right? Naruto and Koyuki. This had to be a genjutsu of some kind. She formed the hand sign and tried to cancel the genjutsu she thought was over her. Nothing happened. She tried again, but again nothing. Naruto was still with Koyuki and now they were making out in front of her with Naruto's hands up and down Koyuki's body, even slipping into the sheet covering the snow, spring princess's body. Hearing the moans and mewls of pleasure. Naruto, more, I want more, Koyuki gasped out. With pleasure, but we need to get back to the table if we're going to discuss business, Naruto said. Yes, so much business to attend to, Koyuki said. Sakura was excited. Koyuki Kazahana has come to Konoha to negotiate a new treaty. She just had to tell Naruto since she knew he'd be psyched about meeting her again. So she raced across rooftops to get her blonde teammate's apartment. Once there, she knocked on the door. No answer, so she knocked harder. Still no answer. Sakura did this for a while till she got fed up and began pounding on the door. Naruto, get up, you lazy! She shouted. The door was opened as Sakura was about to pound again. Her fist stopped as her green eyes widened at who was at the door. It couldn't be, it just couldn't be. Her mouth went dry and no words could come to her. What do you want? Before, Sakura was a very pissed off Koyuki. She looked just as amazing as she did all those years ago when she first met her. But the only difference was that Koyuki wasn't wearing any clothes at all. Well, she was wearing a bed sheet, but I don't think that qualifies as clothing, does it? Sakura stuttered and mumbled in response. Well, you have interrupted something very important and I want to get back to it without much delay, Koyuki said angrily. Sakura just nodded, still in shock at what she was seeing in front of her. What in the world is Koyuki doing here? She thought. Before Sakura could ask this out loud, Naruto appeared in a white wife beater and a pair of boxers. He wrapped his arms around Koyuki's waist and held her tight. Koyuki leaned against Naruto as she relaxed in his arms. What's keeping you, my queen? I thought you had important business to discuss with me. Naruto asked. I do, but we got this interruption, Koyuki said, gesturing to Sakura. Naruto looked to Sakura. Hey Sakura, he greeted, then went back to Koyuki. Sakura was trying to wrap her mind around what was going on here. This couldn't be happening, right? Naruto and Koyuki. This had to be a genjutsu of some kind. She formed the hand sign and tried to cancel the genjutsu she thought was over her. Nothing happened. She tried again, but again nothing. Naruto was still with Koyuki and now they were making out in front of her with Naruto's hands up and down, Koyuki's body even slipping into the sheet covering the snow, spring princess's body. Hearing the moans and mewls of pleasure. Naruto, more, I want more, Koyuki gasped out. With pleasure, but we need to get back to the table if we're going to discuss business, Naruto said. Yes, so much business to attend